Okay, everybody, today is an exciting one because I'm going to show you how I turned this into this. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a long edit, so the video is going to be a little bit longer, so buckle up. We're going to dive right into it and get started. And first thing we're going to go over is what happened with this photo. Now, little backstory, we'll make it super quick on the backstory. I went to Italy to shoot an event for a client, and one of the nights we had a performance with these two. And they said, hey, we need you to shoot portraits of these two. You have 10 minutes. Now, I did not expect this at all. Granted, we were in one of the most beautiful locations in Italy, but I wasn't prepared for this. All I had was the R5, which I'm filming on. I had my V1 flash, no modifiers, no nothing, my camera. So literally my camera, flash, and luckily I did bring along a trigger, so I had someone that was able to hold the light off to like a 45-degree angle to get these photos. Now we spent 10 minutes, we got a lot of good photos, but this one was the one that really stood out to me, and this is the one that I really wanted to make into an incredible photo. So this edit is done in Lightroom and Photoshop. There's no AI used on it. This is the raw photo straight out of camera. Let's look at the settings real quick. We have shot this at 1/250th of a second, f2.0, ISO 500. It was at 28 millimeters using the RF 2870 f2L. It's an incredible lens. It gives you a lot of room to play with. So let's start editing and create this photo. First thing I'm gonna do, you'll notice the photo is extremely crooked. So let's go to transform and click auto. Now this is going to give us a better layout of this photo, but we're gonna press R on the keyboard, zoom in a little bit and crop out, put them dead center. I actually wanna keep some of the window because I really like that window. It is fantastic. So there we go. So now we have it all straightened out. And actually I think this might need a little straightening because I wanna straighten it to the stairs, and perfect. Okay, good. Now the photo is dark, but as you can see, the sun was pretty much down. We just had a blue hour kind of coming through. So we had very minimal light, and in the actual building, there was really no lights, just little ambient lights here and there. So this is the outside light, the remaining for the day, and this is my flash, as you can see. So let's go ahead and do the basic tweaks before we get into Photoshop. First things first, let's raise the exposure. We're gonna go quite a bit, really bring back a lot of this. And then we're gonna do the highlights. We're gonna go all the way down basically to there. Now we're gonna bring up the shadows, just get some detail back there, but not much because the exposure brought back most of it. Let's see, whites, we're gonna go up a little bit, and then the blacks, we're really gonna bring them down because I wanted to make this kind of, as you saw, a very moody, dramatic photo. I really wanted the drama in this photo. This feels like a dramatic photo. You probably agree. Now the next thing we're gonna do is adjust the white balance. Now sometimes I could just simply get away with doing this and just clicking on the white and seeing if it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it makes the photo look like a photo from Nightmare on Elm Street or some other horror movie. In this case, it did pretty good. I'm going to warm it up a little bit just for my sake. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more magenta because again, we are wanting to make this kind of a dramatic photo. All right, next thing we're gonna do is come down to the clarity, and we're just gonna soften the image about -15. We're gonna go down to vibrance and saturation and just dip these a little bit because we're gonna bring back the colors specifically in Photoshop. So we want a little bit more room to work with, so to speak. Now let's go into the curves, and this is gonna set our tone of the image. So we're just gonna drop this down because again, moody image, darker image. That's how we're gonna operate with this thing. Now let's go into the color mixer. So there's not much color tweaking to do right here. We're literally just gonna pay attention to the reds and the oranges and yellows really. So first thing on the hue, we're gonna raise this to 15 or so. Actually, no, we're gonna do this 10. Then saturation, we're gonna bring down the orange saturation about 15, and we're gonna bring down the yellow quite a bit to about 45. Now this is again gonna flatten out the image because we're gonna bring back colors later on. This seems a little bit much, so we're gonna raise this back to 30. Good. The funny thing about this edit is we're gonna have a lot of people watch this and be like, why did you do that? You could have done this. And that's okay. If you see an easier way to do what I'm doing, please comment and let me know. I'm always learning, always looking for faster and easier ways to do these edits. Sometimes when I do these edits originally, I literally go in the most convoluted way to reach the goal that's so unnecessary. Sometimes I'll do an edit that'll take me this way, and then I'll do another edit that'll bring me back on track. It's just the way I edit. It's literally all over the freaking place. So I apologize for my crazy path that we are taking today. But I hope you enjoy it. It's an adventure. Okay, so let's go into the luminance here. Now, for the luminance, again, we're going to tweak the oranges and the yellows. So -8 or so. And then for the yellows, we're just going to raise them to brighten them up, maybe minus or plus 12. Good, now let's go into the detail, and we're going to, sharpening is at 40 automatically, color is at 25 automatically. We're gonna reduce luminance noise by 70, and then we're gonna mask it all out. You press option and you can slide it up. We're just gonna go to 64 because we just literally want those edges sharp. Okay, looking sexy. Good. Next thing we're going to go do is effects. We're going to just add some vignette, -10, nothing fancy. We'll do most of our contouring and dodging and burning in Photoshop. And finally, in calibration, we're just going to add a little bit of green, -5, to our shadows. Now, here's our before, here's our after. So far, so good. But now is where the magic freaking happens. So let's right click on this image, go to edit, and edit in Photoshop. Now, my edit in Photoshop is going to maintain the same way of editing where we're editing like a spider web going all over the place. So I'm sorry about the chaoticness of this edit, but in the end, the techniques are really, really valuable to learn, and it helps you get to your destination. So first thing we're gonna do is on the background layer, press Command J will duplicate the layer. Then I'm gonna press W on the keyboard to select the quick select. Then I'm gonna press W on the keyboard. This will give me the quick selection tool. Come up here and press select subject. Now in Photoshop, one of the important things is the more specific and precise you are, the better your image will be. So in this case, if you zoom in, Z on the keyboard, click and then slide right, you'll notice that this whole selection selected this whole thing. That was a lot of words for saying that it picked all that. So we're gonna press L on the keyboard for the lasso tool, push and hold Alt or Option, which gives you the minus sign, and then we're actually going to go in here and subtract the selection of this piece, which is not the subject. Now, the reason I say be specific is because once we've made this selection of the subject, we're going to reuse this specific selection over and over. We're not gonna have to do this again because we can reuse this exact selection. So spend a little bit of time and get it accurate because it will help in the long run. And you wanna make sure that your image looks good. So give me a second while I go through this really quick, and I'll get back to you in just a moment. Done. What's cool about Photoshop these days is it's really good at selections. Like it makes it really simple. Sometimes there's a few adjustments here and there, but overall, really impressed with the selection tools. All right, so now that we have that selected, press Command J, and that'll give you a copy of just your subject. So now we have them alone. So if we were to turn off these two layers, we still have them in frame looking beautiful. Good, now we're gonna go back to our layer 1. We're going to convert this into a smart object. Then we're gonna go into filter, blur, and Gaussian blur, because we want to soften the background of the image. So we're gonna make it 4, not much, because we wanna maintain the detail, but we want it to be blurrier. Good, that will add separation between the subject and the background and make them pop off quite a bit more. Now, the next thing that I really immediately, when I took this photo, was like, I'm gonna do this, was add sun rays coming through that glorious, glorious window. So we're gonna go into some of my resources, and I have tons of light rays. So I'm gonna pull these in here, and we're gonna make them really big because we're gonna have to tweak them quite a bit. So really big, and then we're gonna turn them because again, they have to come out of the window. And let's turn this blend mode to screen, which will get rid of the actual black part of that image and just give us the rays. And then we're gonna right click on it and go to distort. And this will allow us to adjust the rays so they're coming right out of the window. Now this takes a little bit of practice to kind of figure out, okay, what do I need to move to get this ray in the right spot? But it is very doable. We're actually gonna rotate this, I think. I have to do it a different way. We want it to come out farther. Perfect, that's looking pretty good. And then let's raise it up just a little bit. Okay, good. So that's pretty good. All right, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's make sure, yeah, so see this ray here, that doesn't make sense. So we are going to go into here, distort again, raise it up so it's coming out of the window. Beautiful, and slide this one down. So again, it's coming out of the window. There we go, now we're talking. That's better. Oh, so much better. And it's crossing right behind them, which is fantastic. So if the sun was hitting that just perfectly, we'd get those rays cast right through. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely love it. Honestly, that's one of my favorite parts of this image was the sun rays, and it just makes it exactly how I was hoping this image would look. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to work on the actual skin of the subjects. So we're gonna go over here, we're going to create a brightness and contrast layer. We're gonna raise the brightness and contrast to about 55. And then we're going to invert this mask by clicking it and pressing Command or Control I. Using B on the keyboard for the brush, we are going to then paint over, using white as the foreground here. We're gonna paint over their skin, and we're gonna work on the texture, don't worry, or not the texture, but the color of their skin here soon, but we just want to brighten them up and get them popping off the screen a little bit more because they are very dark. Now we could easily just use like a select subject and then brighten them up, but I want their skin to pop. So this will help us in the long run when we adjust them, when we adjust them individually, this will help us make them pop even more because now their skin is coming. Now their skin is popping right off of the screen. Good. Now again, Photoshop is the longer you take, the more specific and precise you are, the better it's gonna look. So that is what we're doing here. Good. All right, so now that we got their skin, here's the before and after, already looking better. The next thing is the skin tone of our guy is a little bit darker. So we're gonna adjust that by using a hue and saturation. We're gonna drop this about 1, and we're gonna do the saturation to about -15, 14, something like that. Again, Command I to invert it, and we're just going to paint this right on our subject's face, the guy here. That'll kind of blend it out just a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural. Again, we're gonna work on it more. But now let's do the female skin, and we're going to do this one as a color balance. And on the yellow blue, we're just gonna raise this to about +10. Again, invert and paint it on her skin. So this looks a little bit better. So before, just takes that orange out, and then on his skin, it just takes that red out. Next thing we're gonna do, create a new layer. I'm gonna go down here to our gradient up here. Make sure that the gradient is in basic and on this one here, but we're also gonna switch it so it is black to white, not white to black. So down here, you'll notice white to black. Press X on the keyboard and it'll switch it. And you'll notice that now your gradient is black to checkered, which means as I pull the gradient here from the bottom left, it will fade black to nothing. That way it just disappears, adding basically a linear gradient like you do in Lightroom. Now for this one, we're not gonna use it at full effect. We're gonna come to the opacity and do about 65%. This just pulls attention in. Again, like I said, there's no sequence to what I do. It's all over the freaking place. Next, we are going to add some contrast. So go into your curves, and we're simply, if you go to default, you can actually select contrast here. We're gonna do a medium contrast and then adjust it as needed here, just like that. So here's the before and after. This is just really making that contrast stand out in the image. Now, one thing that you could do, I did on the original image, but I don't know if I particularly like it, is you can add more of a sun coming through. So if you create a new layer here, press B on the keyboard, X to make white as the foreground, and just pop like a flare here. I had some people say they liked this and some people say they didn't. It is getting it a little bit so it doesn't look overpowering. So that's probably better. And then we can lower it to 50% just to kind of get a glow around the window. I think in the original image, I did it a little too much. So it was way more attention grabbing than this one was. So play around with this. This is a kind of a difficult one to do, just simply because you want to look natural, but you also want to look wowing. It's kind of a fine middle ground when you're doing this kind of edit. Now at this point, I actually finished the edit and I came back to it. But to pull the image together, whenever I'm in Photoshop, I always tend to add a color that blankets the whole thing. So I go to the color lookup, and then for this one, I picked Candlelight, and then I dull it way down. Like I want it in the undertones of the image. It's kind of like grading it so it all pulls the image together, so all the colors blend. And I did only 10%, and that's generally what I do. Anywhere from 5 to 20% is all I usually do on color lookups, simply because you don't want to overpower it. But this is where I ended up stopping and I took a break, because sometimes when you're editing for a long time, you kind of miss things or overdo things, and it's good to take a break. So I took a break and I came back to the image, and then I did a little bit more. Now, the next step I did was I pressed Shift Command Option E, which creates a combined layer of all your current edits. Then I used my sharpening action, which for this, I'll link it in the description. It's a free download. It just allows you to sharpen your images quite a bit. I've done tons of videos on it. So for this to work, you have to rename the layer Sharpen. Then you go to my sharpening effect, press play, and it will do the whole action. Not gonna get into that here. And then I'm gonna apply it to my entire subject. Now, how do we do that? Remember we had our layer down here. So if we press Command and click, we have our selection. So then we come back up here to our sharpening layer, click the mask, brush, and make sure 100%, and paint over it. And boom, there we go. We have sharpened our subject. So here's the before, here's the after. Now it's very subtle. It's easier to zoom in more, before, after, but it makes a major difference. And the best thing about this sharpening action is, let's say you apply too much of it. Let's say 100% is generally too much. So you come here and you just do like 60%. Now they're sharp, but they're not sharp. And there is a difference. Good. Now we have sharpened our subjects. So what's next? Next thing is kind of the retouching and contouring and stuff like that. So the first thing we're going to do is make another new layer, Shift Command Option E. We're going to unselect this. We're going to zoom in, create a new layer, and we're going to clean up this shoe just a little bit. So press I on the keyboard for the sample tool, sample her shoe, press B on the keyboard. What I'm doing is I'm pressing Control and Option on a Mac, and I'm swiping left to adjust the size of the brush. It's a little bit faster. You can also, in the brush tool, push and hold Alt or Option to get the sample tool to sample your selection, your colors. Then we're gonna lower this to about 10% opacity, and we're just gonna paint on the shoe and just lighten it up. I mean, we could do this so many different ways, but honestly, I wanted to spend as little time on this as possible, just simply because it's not the biggest of deals. People aren't gonna zoom in that much to really see it. So if you lighten it up enough, it kind of disappears in the image, and that's really all we're going for. We don't wanna spend too much time on something that, honestly, is just kind of an extra edit. I had one person mention it when I showed them the image, and so that's why I did it. Good. So here's the before, here's the after. If we zoom out, again, before, after. So it's just one less thing that your attention goes to when you're looking through the image, and that's the main point. Little details like this do make a big difference, but again, know their value in the edit. Is it worth taking the time to edit it, or is it something that you can just pass over and not worry about it? That's your choices. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is airbrush her leg, because we just wanna make it smoother. So we're gonna use the same layer, go to the brush, press and hold I to get the color. Let's do this first. Let's go back to our layer, press J on the keyboard, clean that up. That's easier to do that way. Now go back to the brush, take a sample of the skin, and we're just gonna airbrush. Essentially, that's what we're doing. And clean this up. Avoid these shadows, because those are great contour shadows for her muscles, because they're insane. Like, can you imagine how strong you have to be to do what they do? It's insane. So we're gonna leave that because that's quite impressive. And so we wanna make sure that we show off her skill. But that's good, that looks fine there. So now we are going to do a little bit of contrast. We're gonna fade out some of the contrast. So we're gonna create a curves, And I'm gonna do 2 points in the shadows and here in the top, and we're just gonna raise this up a little to balance out some of the shadow. Then I wanna do some dodging and burning on the model's face, because with all of the work that we've done, we've actually removed some of the natural contour in her face. So I have an action for that. It's simply 2 curves adjustments, 1 high, 1 low. But we're gonna click our action, press play, and this gives our dodge and burn. As you can see, here's the burn, here's the dodge. They're just really high curves, that's it. So first thing we're gonna do is do burn, press B on the keyboard, lower this to 7%, make sure white is the 4 color, and then we're going to just paint right here to kind of, even out these shadows because these are not good contours. And this takes a little bit of practice to kind of get it right, but once you get it, it looks really, really good, but you can definitely overdo it. And you can definitely do it wrong. I am by no means perfect at this, and there are people that are so much better than me at what I am doing. However, I do what I can. I just try not to overdo it. That is all. Okay, good. So this looks pretty good. And then we're gonna do the burn, and we're gonna bring back some of that contour. So we're gonna put like some dark here. I don't think I'm doing a very good job here. It looked way better in the original. But again, the cool thing about this is you can actually lower the effect once you've gotten it on. So you could overdo it and then you could bring it back down. That way it balances out. So that looks a little bit better. It's hard to, I gotta say, this is the hardest part of editing. I really enjoy AI for this reasoning right here. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. So here's the before, here's the after. That definitely looks better. It gives her cheek more of a pop than her than whatever is going on there with the light. So I'm good with that. And again, it is a little heavy, so we're gonna lower this. Just click on the main group and lower this to 60%. There you go. That looks way better. Good. And then if we zoom out, it just looks a little bit better on her contour. Now let's go ahead and do kind of a reverse on the saturation. Nope, that's not what we wanted. That was the wrong thing. So click here, hue saturation, and we are going to lower this by about 5, bring back, lower the saturation in the image, and then we're going to add super amount of contrast, super amount in the darks, and darken the image just a shade like that. The next thing we're gonna do is Command Shift Option E and make a new layer. The next thing we're gonna do is bring out the subject because we've gotten the background looking really, really good. So we're gonna press, and we're gonna create a curves here, and we're gonna raise this up. Now, we're gonna affect the entire image. However, what we're going to do is come down here and click on our selection of our subject that we did in the beginning of the video, push and hold Alt or Option, drag this up to that mask, let it drop there, and press yes, and now we have that exact selection. Then what we're gonna do is we're going to use our brush, switch to black, and make sure this is selected, and we're gonna hide 100% opacity here, and we're going to hide the selection here so it balances out. Good, because we don't want this too much, we want it to brighten just them up. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring back the saturation in their skin. So we're gonna go into hue and saturation, we're gonna raise the saturation, right? And we're gonna again click this, press Alt or Option and drag it up, press yes, and that will give us just that selection there, but we're also gonna bring it back on her leg. So press yes and paint it back on her leg. And I think we're actually gonna lower it a little bit on her face. So brush again, X to make it black, and then we're gonna select this and do 30% to remove 30% of it. So that kind of balances their skin tones. There we go. Now here is the before and after. So they're kind of popping off the screen now. Now, one thing you can do to get really creative is you can burn or darken all the dark areas. Now, I already did this in the other video, and this is quite a lot of work. So let me just show you kind of what I started with. I did a curves, I lowered it to about there, and then I inverted it. Click this, press Command I, and then went through using the brush, all the dark lines and darken them. Now this is a little aggressive, so we're gonna go down to 40% here. Undo both of those, perfect, 40%, and click and I went through all of these different lines to darken them, so it really made them stand out. Now what I'm doing to get these straight lines is I click, press and hold shift, and then click in the straight line where I want to go. This allows me to get those very, very straight lines. Did all around here, so this guy pops out quite a bit, but this was extremely tedious, and again, one of those things where you have to value, is this going to be worth it on the image? I determined that yes, it was, because it made quite a difference in the fact that it popped out. And let me show you, just by what I did there. Oops, not that one. If I zoom out, right, and pay attention to this top part, here's the before, here's the after. So it does make a huge difference in the three-dimensional of the image. So in this case, yes, I did believe it was worth it. Now that's all I'm gonna do there because it's gonna take a ton of time, but you get the idea. Now the last thing we did was camera raw. So Command Shift Option E, save as a smart object, sorry, convert as a smart object. We're gonna go into camera raw filter, which is essentially Lightroom in Photoshop. And we're only gonna do a few tweaks here. The first thing we're gonna do is the tint. We're gonna put some green. Then we're gonna go to the color grading. In the shadows, we're going to do about there, add a little bit of purple. In the shadows. And then in the midtones, we're going to add, where is it? A little bit of blue, right about there. And then on global, to bring it all together, we're going to add a little bit of magenta, because that looks really nice, I think. And then we're going to do a little bit of masking. So the first thing we're going to do is a radial, and this is going to make them pop. So do it right behind them, subtract the subject, and we're going to make this we're going to brighten this up so they stand out a little bit. Whoa, that was weird. Never seen that before. Good. And then we're going to do a select subject and subtract a brush because it still thinks that this is a person. I mean, I can see that, I guess. AI is still not perfect. Although I did hear that it's starting to go against control of humans. So, Skynet, hooray! Okay, so for their exposure, we're going to raise their exposure. We're going to up their contrast. We're going to lower their highlights and raise their shadows. This is going to help bring us contrast into them. I'm going to raise their whites and lower their blacks and lower their saturation just a shade. Good. And then we're going to do a face brush on them. So go to brush. We're going to paint on their faces. Actually, just on his, I think. And we're going to change the hue just a little bit to about, ooh, too much. There we go, and raise our exposure just a shade, make him pop off a little bit more. There we go. See, there's still quite a different skin tone. Now that's gonna happen, they are different skin tones. So you can actually, you don't need them to be perfect because they are different people, so it doesn't need to be perfect. But there you go, so there is that. And press OK. And the final thing we're gonna do, which is just balance out the stairs. So we're gonna create a curves, lower this down, invert it, press B on the keyboard for the brush, and just paint it over the stairs. That way there's less attention on the stairs. And there we have it. So here is the before, here is the after, and that is the insanely long edit that I promised you were going to get. So I hope this helps. I hope you learned some tricks and tips in Photoshop. It is a very big program. It is complex, and you can do so much into it. It can be very, very overwhelming. So if this video helped, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. If you want some more tutorials, here's 2 videos that I think you'll enjoy. But let me know what you think of the edit. If you have any questions, you know where the comment section is. Other than that, have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.